episode 3 of Stand Up and Stand Out. For today's episode, we decided we're going to do something a little strange, and I'm going to interview myself. Hopefully it doesn't get too weird and I don't seem like I have a split personality, but even if I do, it just goes along with all the rest of my quirkiness. We're going to go through our interview questions, sort of set the stage for the other interviews that we're going to have on the podcast soon. Lots of cool guests coming. So excited to share the different stories from people that I know and people that I'm getting to know through this podcast. And if you have people that you'd like to have come on the show, hey, send them to our website. There's a link right there, Green Chameleon Collective /podcast, and they can schedule time right with me to talk about options to join us and talk about all kinds of things. So let's get started. As you can see, for those of you watching on YouTube, I love cats. I have a lot of animals. I'll talk about those in a little bit, but right there is my cat Colossus, who is constantly right by my side while I'm working. And there's me dressed as a silly cat, and there's lots of explanation for that, but you'll see that I have a thing for costumes. So let's get started. One of the main things I like to talk about is uniqueness. And the reason I talk about uniqueness is because it's been a central theme to my life. You'll see on my website that I have a chameleon as my logo. And for me, that's really important because I like to also talk about adaptation and what that means to adapt and be successful, but maintain that unique characteristic of yourself. So as we get started, I have a whole family full of comic book and sci-fi nerds, including myself. And so I did a bit of a storyline with these questions. Hopefully that'll get us some interesting answers as we go through. So first up, hey, Nikki, what's your origin story? And am I the hero or am I the villain? I do think I like doing that laugh more than anything. I don't know that I'm the villain though. Well, the first thing that makes me unique is the fact that I was born into a family with 6 parents. Yeah, that poor photographer at my wedding. It gets confusing. On the left, you'll see, first of all, adorable little baby me, my 3 moms on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, 3 dads. Wonderful, wonderful people. You know, it was a complex time for all of us to come together. And, you know, we all had our bumps in the road, just like everybody else and other families do. We just had to do it 3 times over. That's my lovely mother in the middle with little tiny me. And then on the left-hand side on the bottom, you'll see a cute picture of me with my little tiny brother, who is great big giant now. He is over 6 feet and I'm barely 5'3". So as the years go on, I think that distance is even growing. And then on the bottom right-hand side, if you're looking on YouTube, you'll also see a lovely picture of me and my sister from the same mister. And so we have different parents because we each came along at different times in the joining and separation of my parents. I'm not going to tell you everything about my life because obviously I've written a book. It's my memoir. There's lots of stories in there, but I want to tell you different stories and why these things come together to be who I am. A lot of you guys may have had different types of parents, different types of, ways that you were brought up, and maybe these things will hit home for you as well. I moved to 9 schools in 12 years. So by the time I had gone to my senior year of high school, I pretty much moved all the time. I started in Reno, Nevada, where I was born, Battle Born, if you see my shirt. Yeah. Then we moved to Santa Rosa. We were there for a short time. And then we moved down to San Lorenzo in the East Bay of California. And then later on to Hayward. So it was quite the voyage, moving schools, sometimes not moving homes, lots of complications there, and always going back and forth between my parents' homes in Reno and in California. So even when I was supposed to be still, I was still moving. Because I went to so many different schools, I took a really different approach. I think a lot of kids get really shy and they try to blend in and fit in. As you can see by some of these pictures, I've got a personality. I've had it since I was born, and I really just brought that personality every day. I didn't always feel that pressure to adapt because I kind of knew I wasn't going to stay in any one place for too long. That may sound a little bit sad, but I just learned to stand out. I learned if I wanted to make friends, I couldn't be the shy one in the corner. I learned that I actually had to just be more vocal, go talk to people, and, be my bubbly, perky self. And for the most part, that worked out until I got to a difficult time in my life and a lot of things happened. And it was sort of this domino effect. And it created really an incredible time of sadness and depression for me. In 1987, my uncle died. So on top of having these three wonderful fathers who were juggling taking care of me, my uncle also left and dropped his whole life to help my mom raise me when I was first born. And so I was very close to my uncle. And so losing him was very difficult, not just for me, but for our entire family. He was only 29 at the time, so he was still quite young. Then as we moved to Hayward, I was in middle school, and we all know that that's a very difficult time for people. You're growing up, you're trying to get independent, you're trying to find your own place, but at the same time, I had just moved to a new school and I was trying to find myself even there. There I experienced bullying, racism, abuse, just a lot of terrible things happened, and I got really lost in the shuffle of it. The silver lining to that is I played sports. I come from a family not only of athletes, but also of musicians and actors. And so it gave me a great stage to go relieve some of the stress that I was experiencing, learn how to lead others, how to work within a team, and how to be coached. And it gave me some protection or a little bit of shelter from some of the challenges that I was experiencing. I have this sort of love-hate relationship with Hayward. My parents are still there to this day. So I'm back there often. Many of my friends still live there, and I went to school there. So the time there, it taught me a lot of things, but it was really difficult. And I know many people are experiencing a lot of challenges coming out of last year and some of the new challenges we're facing in 2021. So for me, I just focused on getting out. I really just had this clear goal in my mind that if I went to college, if I got my career, it would be the light at the end of the tunnel. Things aren't that simple, as we all know, but it was at least a way to get through this very challenging time. And then my favorite part there is I newly published my memoir this year in 2021, and me smiling from ear to ear with my new book. So what makes you unique and what makes you stand out? As if all the rest of that stuff hasn't been enough, I have been traveling all over the place. So I've been to 30 states in the United States. I've run over 30 miles in a single day, and I've cycled over 200 miles in 2 days. You'll see, if you're looking on YouTube, lots of wonderful pictures of me hiking, biking, and running all over the United States. You'll also see me in lots of silly costumes. So in this picture is from 2013, where I did the Walt Disney World Coast to Coast Challenge, where you run races in Disney World, and then you also run races in Disneyland, and then you get a ridiculous amount of medals, which for me is the only jewelry I ever need. There's me hiking on the Tahoe Rim Trail, hiking the Narrows in Zion Park in Utah, and my shiny new bicycle there, Falcor, if you know the movie, bonus points, and doing triathlons. So lots of exciting adventures that I've had. So although, again, challenges when I was little, that adaptation gave me all these new ways to use that energy to want to continue to do sports and just continue to see different places and see what was going on in each of them. So how did I get there, right? That's quite the jump from what was going on as in my childhood to where I ended up as an adult. A couple of very transformational experiences happened. I met my husband when I was a senior in high school, and we ended up getting married in 2001 after I finished university. And he really helped me grow the roots that I was missing, that I had from all that time moving on. Not that my parents didn't love me, they loved me very much. It was just challenging to be juggling between everyone. And about a year after I met him, as I started going to college, I also had a life-changing experience, and I did a summer abroad in Paris. And I turned that into a lifelong adventure of traveling and just going all over the world. You'll see there's not a lot of pictures from my time in Paris because in 96, we didn't have cell phones and ways to take selfies. So I have mostly really beautiful postcards and amazing memories. That right there is a picture of Le Sainte-Chapelle, which is a cathedral, and it is absolutely gorgeous. I know most people know the Notre Dame because it's right there in the center of Paris, but the Sainte-Chapelle is, in my opinion, more beautiful, and it was a spiritual experience for me where I really just had this stillness and this quiet, and I knew what I wanted to do with my life. And I knew that I loved traveling. It wasn't just something people say, but that I wanted to keep doing this, to speak languages, to learn about cultures, and really to see the world. And then, of course, at the bottom, you'll see some funny pictures of me running in Disneyland Paris for my 40th birthday. It was, again, sort of a big milestone to go back to that city that had transformed me so much and celebrate such a big birthday. Yes, again, silly costumes and all sorts of stuff going on, but really keeping that motto of just be so completely yourself that everyone else feels safe to do it for themselves. So speaking of countries, we talked about how many states I went to. I've been to 14 countries, probably a lot more as soon as COVID lets us back out and about again. This is just a couple of pictures to show, it's not all running and work, but that is how I've seen a lot of the world. There's me running through Paris. There's me running through Singapore. That's me in London at work. I've also had a few trips with my family, me in Cabo San Lucas fishing with my family. And then there's some fun times up there. I went to the Guinness and the Jameson factories during a couple trips to Dublin, Ireland, and then my wonderful trip to Cuba, which again was an absolutely amazing experience. And of course, got to bring back some cigars and some rum. So I love these memories and I just can't wait to travel more. And it's a dream come true. I barely thought that I would go to Paris. I did that at 18, and now at 43, I've been to so many more places and been back to many of these places to continue seeing more of them. I have friends in all of these places. So when I go back, I get a different experience. I get to see what the locals see. I get to try different cuisine and get to better understand their culture and not just come and do the touristy things. I love doing the touristy things too. I love going to museums. I love doing historical stuff. There's so much to do when you go see someplace, and it's really an opportunity to learn in a way that doesn't come alive when you're just reading a book or watching a YouTube video about it. And of course, where would I be if I didn't show you all my Halloween costumes? So I love to host parties. I love to, get up and sing karaoke, although that is not good, but it's still fun and entertaining. And here's just a few of my funny costumes and things that I've done over time. If you're not watching on YouTube and you would like to see other funny costumes that I've done, you can check out my entertaining dance videos on TikTok at Nikki Green 678. To date, I've kept away from the singing while I've been on TikTok, but maybe one of these days. I love music. And so there's theme songs to all the chapters in my book. And so on TikTok, I've been sort of reenacting each of those chapters, talking through the song of kind of life experience that happened at the time. And then the most unique thing about me that is just sort of a side fact is I always have a zoo of animals. So at one point we had 4 turtles, 2 leopard geckos, a bearded dragon, and 3 cats. So I already showed you Colossus, but I also have Gozer, Charlie, and then those are my loving turtles, my Marla and Tyler, Fight Club reference, if you know that one, and Muad'Dib and Shaddam, which is a Dune reference from my favorite books. What makes you stand up, and how do you use your superpowers for good? What causes have affected your life that make you want to improve them for future generations? I think this is an important question as I have new guests on the show, because I really want to show that it's not just about our careers. It's not just about, what's going on with us professionally, but it is so important for us to give back. I think after this last year, a lot of people have struggled. For me, my cause is usually around kids and people struggling as they start to grow up, because I struggled when I grew up. There was a lot of time where I just needed someone to listen. I needed someone's help. And so I was very fortunate to have a great experience in 2013 and 14. And I was on the board at Girls on the Run, the Sierras chapter, which is near my hometown of Reno, Nevada. Since then, I've done lots of events with them, and it's just been an absolutely transformational experience. I was also a volunteer coach with them, which was great. I think a lot of the coaches say that they learn more from the experience and get just as much out of it as the girls who are in the program. And then as I moved to Chicago in 2019, I also was a soulmate with them and ran the Chicago Marathon. Thank goodness, right before everything shut down, as we'll see when we start having marathons and stuff again. But I am always passionate about that. I am now joining boards and doing other new things here that I'm in Chicago, and there'll be announcements on my LinkedIn and stuff as those new things start to come together. As we close here, the question is, what am I doing now? It seems like I did a whole lot, and am I still going? And I keep hearing about this green chameleon thing. What's that business? So another transformational, difficult time in my life is in 2015. I had a surgery that basically stopped me in my tracks. And that time forced me to reset my life goals. Again, if you can see the pictures on YouTube, you'll see a picture which looks like I have a baby bump, and it is not. It is actually 2 softball-sized tumors that are in my abdomen. Luckily for me, I had my cats at home to keep me company, but it was a very difficult 2 months stuck at home watching Netflix. And I think now, was this practice for the pandemic? Because maybe the pandemic was a little bit easier for me because I had gone through that. I couldn't do much of anything. I was pretty much bound to a chair. I couldn't get up. And I did a lot of counted cross stitch. Like I said, I would watch Netflix, and I thought about what I want to do with my life. I thought about what was making me sad or unhappy. I thought about the things that would make me happy. I spent so much of my time going, traveling, working, training for things. I never really had stillness until this time. So although it was difficult and extremely frustrating and depressing for me, it was an important reset for me mentally to really set the stage for what would come. A month before surgery, so in December of 2014, I ran the California International Marathon. That's me with the goat. Don't ask me why there was a goat at the marathon, but he was too cute to pass up and not get my picture with him. And by January following the surgery, I couldn't get myself out of bed. I couldn't even get myself out of a chair to go to the bathroom. I had to have people help me with pretty much everything. And my path to recovery was quite literally one step at a time, really slow and really thoughtful about myself physically, like what I had done to my body, about mentally, like I had been pretty unhappy in my job. In April, I was supposed to run a 21 miler in Big Sur. And I asked my physician before the surgery, hey, do you think I'm going to be able to do this? And she just laughed and said, haha, you're funny. So 4 months after the surgery, I jogged my first half a mile. And I was exhausted for 2 to 3 days afterwards. It really was a difficult recovery. I lost my confidence in myself. Obviously, I gained weight, I wasn't moving, and I was just sitting in this chair getting angry and sad and frustrated that I couldn't do the things I had done before. And I was angry that this had happened to me. I felt betrayed by my body. And I know a lot of folks have had injuries or had other more serious illnesses. And it's a really debilitating thing mentally, aside from the physical thing that's happening to you. But a year later, I finished a half Ironman. I got myself together. I got a new job that made me happy. And I started on this new path of recovery for my mind, my body, and so much more. So if that wasn't enough, as I got to this time period with the pandemic, I really just had set the stage for wanting to own my own business and do these new things. And this year, I'm also starting the podcast, and thank you all for listening. And I want to showcase others who have also had Unique's life and to have them tell their story. I want to go through those tough topics of how do we find out about ourselves? How do we choose that path that's going to bring us happiness and harmony? Too many people are being put on a path of say, oh, if I just go to university, all of a sudden it magically comes together, and it doesn't work that way. Most of us that even go to university, you get a degree that doesn't end up being what you end up getting a job in. And so I think that there's this new path forward for all of us, which many of us are doing our pandemic pivot, as we call it, from last year, to start to get that alignment. So Green Chameleon has 3 parts. Green, that's me. My name is Nikki Green. Well, my name now is Nikki Green. I'm an author, I'm a motivational speaker, and I'm a career coach for millennials. Although I say for millennials, I help anybody who really needs help. I like to help people who are in these kinds of difficult life transitions because I've gone through them several times in my career. And I think I'm starting to get the niche of what it's going to take to make you successful in the next one. I picked the chameleon for that adaptation aspect. Adapting to change is such a critical life skill. And I think we learned that a lot last year. I want to help people learn to have patience and be resourceful to adapt for the better. And that doesn't mean always blending in. As the podcast says, I do want people to stand out, and there is a time to stand out, and there is a time to stand up for ourselves and for others. And I think those messages are incredibly important. And last year has really made a difference, I think, in how many people see the world. One, just from our interconnectedness. Two, from more time at home, more time with our families, whether we wanted it or not. Just a lot of things. There was a lot of layers of things that happened last year. And so the last piece is collective. It's really building a safe community where we help each other improve, to face our fears and to bravely share what makes us unique and that evolves to the needs of the group. I know that what you guys need now may not be what you need in 6 months to a year from now. So my commitment to you is, as you join this program, that we learn together, right? And we continue to build up, and we continue to build more expertise, and we set people happily on their path. I have been starting over here in Chicago, although I've done lots of moves on the West Coast and living in Miami for a little while. I'm in a new city. I have a new life. I have a new love. I have a new business. I have a new name. But most of all, I have new excitement for the future. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this podcast. I hope you've learned a little bit more about me, and it gets you interested in wanting to spend time with me on the next episodes, but also maybe just to read my book and, get to know all the rest of the stories behind that. Thank you all so much for joining and for listening to a small clip of my story. I can't wait to share more of other people's stories with you. And like I said, if you're interested in sharing your story on our podcast, please go to greenchameleoncollective.com/podcast. You'll see a link right there where you can submit and get right on my calendar, and we'll schedule time to talk about what is unique about you. Hopefully you guys are subscribing either on the YouTube channel or wherever the cool kids hang out that do podcasts. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you again soon.